Bridget and Sherry and some others. So thank you. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. This session is called Energize Your Life and Your Work. And my name is Patrice Matteson. I have a master's in education and I am a Strength Scope accredited practitioner, also keynote speaker, business coach, and a part of the Coach.me certified habit coaching. So welcome this morning, afternoon or evening, whatever time it may be in your time zone. And we're going to learn about why strengths matter. We're going to find your individual strengths, and we're going to discover how to maximize your energy. So I want you to think back at a time when you were at your best. You were just focused, you were involved, you were excited, you were just at your best. And in the chat, you can just put in there 3 words that come to mind when you think of that. Just put yourself back into that, wherever you were, whatever you were doing, when you were at your best. And then you, in the chat there, you can just put those 3 words that come to mind. I'll give you just a minute to kind of get into that place of energy and focus and flow. Focused, happy, confident, great. Excited is another good word that comes up there. Well, flow is a psychological term, and I know we had another session on flow too, that this was popularized by a Hungarian-American psychologist, and it means that you're in that just really highly focused mental state. You're in the zone, you're in the groove. And we see that in sports. We see that in music. We see it in other sports. We see it anytime that people are focused, engaged, and in that state of flow. And to get to flow, we look at your skills and your talents, and we want to add in more energizing activities and fewer what we call derailing activities. So what energizes you? Well, we're going to be talking about strength, but this definition is a little bit different than the strength that we think about. Strength in your energizers is really what makes you feel strong. It makes you feel empowered. It makes you feel unique. It's who you are. That's what we're going to be talking about in strengths. It helps you to be authentic. When the going's good, strengths help you to excel. In challenging times, they build your confidence. So that's how we're going to be looking at strength. There's the areas of competence, and those are your abilities and your learned skills and your talents. Those are the things that you do well. If you look at the energy areas that energize you, that overlap becomes your true strengths. That's when you're going to get into flow. That's when you're going to be at your best. And we want you to be at your best more often. Strength Scope looks at different characteristics, 24, that energize you, different strengths, and how you can reach this peak performance. They categorize these 24 strengths into thinking, relational, and execution. So I want you to grab a piece of paper, and I want you to look at these different strengths as I scroll through them. And any one of them that you say, you know what, that's me, that excites me, that energizes me, that's who I am, I want you to write it down. There's going to be maybe a couple in there that might drain you. And if you come across those, you might just in another column put drainers. Now, these aren't necessarily things that you are good at. You're probably good at them, but some things that you're good at can actually drain you. For instance, detail orientation, I'm very good at details, but they do tend to drain me. So don't just look for things that you're good at. Look at things that really energize you and excite you. Some other words that are coming through are great here too: confident, playful, calm, So here we go. We're ready to go. These are the 24 strengths that have been pulled together by StrengthScope that deal with emotional, relational, execution, and thinking. And the emotional ones are how you make sense of, express, and manage your emotions in a way that you perform your work. So, courage. You take on challenges and face risks by standing up for what you believe. Emotional control. You're aware of your emotional triggers and how to control these to remain calm and productive. Enthusiasm. You demonstrate passion and energy when communicating goals, beliefs, interests, or ideas you feel strongly about. Optimism. You remain positive and upbeat about the future and your ability to influence it to your advantage. Resilience. You deal effectively with setbacks and enjoy overcoming difficult challenges. Self-confidence. You have a strong belief in yourself and your abilities to accomplish tasks. Those were the emotional. So if any of those resonated with you, I hope you've written those down. We're going to move on to relational. These are concerns establishing and maintaining productive relations with others for personal needs, satisfaction, and or to achieve your work goals. Collaboration. You work cooperatively with others to overcome conflict and build toward a common goal. Compassion. You demonstrate a deep and genuine concern for the well-being of others. Developing others. You promote other people's learning and development to help them achieve their goals and fulfill their potential. Empathy. You readily identify with other people's situations and can see things clearly from their perspective. Leading. You take responsibility for influencing and motivating others to contribute to the goals and successes of their team and organization. Persuasiveness. You are able to win agreement and support for a position or desired outcome. Relationship building. You take steps to build networks of contacts and act as a hub between people that you know. Okay, those were the relational. We're going to look at some execution. And this concerns delivering results, including both what is delivered and how it is delivered. So I hope you're writing down the strengths that are really resonating with you and that when you look at them, you're like, yes, that energizes me. Decisiveness. You make quick, confident, and clear decisions even when faced with limited information. Efficiency. You take a well-ordered and methodical approach to tasks to achieve planned outcomes. Flexibility. You remain adaptable and flexible in the face of unfamiliar or changing situations. Initiative. You take independent action to make things happen and achieve goals. Results focused. You maintain a strong sense of focus on results, driving tasks and projects to completion. Self-improvement. You draw on a wide range of people and resources in the pursuit of self-development and learning. Now we're going to go in the area called thinking. And this is how you apply your intellect and how you gather and you use information. So see if any of these are your strengths. Common sense. You make pragmatic judgments based on practical thinking and previous experience. Creativity. You come up with new ideas and original solutions to move things forward. Critical thinking. You approach problems and arguments by breaking them down systematically and evaluating them objectively. Detail orientation. You pay attention to detail in order to produce high quality output, no matter what the pressures. Strategic mindedness. You focus on the future and take a strategic perspective on issues and challenges. So now that we've looked through those and you've written down your energizers, I want you to look back and circle 3 that are your top 3. These would be the ones that resonate with you the most. These are the ones that are you. They're make you unique. It makes you who you are. These affect how you lead. These affect how you work in a team. This affects just activities day to day. And the whole goal is for you to be at your best more often. So do you have your 3 that are written down? Anybody would like to share in the chat room 1 or 2 of your energizers? And as you're looking through that, connect the dots. Think back to at your best, when you were at your best from an earlier, and reflect, how does the energy from your strengths help you to be at your best? So I was sharing with someone that loved to be speaking, and that was their at their best, was on the stage speaking. And when we looked at the strengths that she had, one of them was enthusiasm, one was leading, and those 2 really played into an initiative because she had taken the initiative to have that opportunity to be on the stage training. So all of her energies were working together, plus her talents, to put her in that state of flow. She was focused. She was at her best. Someone said too that they could have chosen 6 more. When you take the Strength Scope assessment, it is a scientific assessment. When you take the Strength Scope assessment, it does identify your top 7. They call it your significant 7. And what you'll find too is that there's some of your strengths that we call bubbling up. There's some that even sometimes can be almost in that top 7. Some of the other ones that we're seeing that people are detail orientation, developing others, creativity, enthusiasm. The exciting thing about strengths is they're unique. They're just like your fingerprint. Everyone is unique. In the testing that they're doing, to even have people in the top 7 is like 246,000 people that even would have even similar strengths. For you to find your true energizers and your true drainers, I challenge you to do an energy journal. In this energy journal, when you are just at your best and you're working, take a moment to write down what you're doing. When you're feeling drained, take that same time just to stop and write down what you're doing that drains you. A lot of people like to keep the journal maybe 1 or 2 weeks to look back to find out where their true energizers are and where their true drainers are. This will really help you get a snapshot as when you're really at your best. So to have this flow, you're taking your skills and your talents, you're adding in more energizing activities, but you want to have fewer derailing activities. So we're going to talk about some of the activities that can derail you. When I think of flow, a year or so ago, I was actually on a cruise, and they had a group of young performers that were on their instruments, musical instruments, and they were giving a concert. And I sat there and thought, this is like the perfect example of flow. They were talented. Oh, they had a wonderfully talented piano player and cellist and violinist. And they were so energized from presenting and being there on the stage. And it was amazing. And you could see that they could have probably played for hours. They had about 1 hour, but they probably could have gone on and on. Sometimes when we get into flow, time just flies by. We forget where we are, what we're doing. We sometimes forget to eat. And that was what was happening there, was their skills and their talents, and they were energized. Their strengths were a part of that presentation. There are 2 derailing activities that can happen to take us out of this flow. When you were looking through that list, I had you also jot down something that when you looked at, you were like, oh my gosh, that is so draining. That is just not me. So one of the derailing activities is called drainers. Did any of you notice a drainer when you were looking through that list? Usually those pop right out at us. There were 2 people I was working with, and they were having some problems at work. And once we looked at their strengths, one of them was very detail oriented. That energized him. And actually the other person, that was his number one drainer, was detail orientation. That particular person was more strategic. He liked to look at the big picture. Once they realized that sometimes what energizes me drains you, that had a whole different effect on their relationship. So when the detail person got excited about details, he didn't necessarily go to Josh. He went to someone else to share those details. When he wanted to look at the big picture of things, then he went to Josh, and Josh was great at the strategic and the long term. That relationship that had been kind of tense in the workplace actually ended up that they were best friends. It was just understanding that sometimes what energizes me drains you. And sometimes we think that just because it drains us, it's going to drain everyone else. And that isn't true either. I think the beauty of all of this is just to realize that we are all unique and we are all energized by different things. And that's when the collaboration, that's when the sharing and the workplace, everyone is at their best. Some drainers, I'm seeing if there's some drainers that are down here. It's fine, go ahead and post if you have a drainer. In the strength scope assessment, and at the end I'll share with you how to go about doing that. It is actually a scientific assessment. They are in the UK, it was developed in the UK, and they help you with how to not only identify your drainer, which sometimes we know, but then what to do with that to overcome that. There's some permanent solutions. Sometimes we just stop doing it. Sometimes we can fix the process, and sometimes we can outsource or barter it. I know someone was even mentioning earlier that when they were doing their slides or writing their presentations, that they outsourced that because it was a very draining activity for them. Sometimes we can reframe it. I was working with someone in sales that needed to make phone calls, and it was very draining for her to be in sales. She loved people, but she didn't want to actually make the sale. Now that sounds kind of funny that someone could be in sales and not have that desire to make the sale. But what we did was she loved people. Almost all of her skills were in relations, the relationship. So we had her start helping people. She had compassion. She had empathy. And as she started to find and reveal the needs of her clients, she could help fill those needs, and actually became a top salesperson because she reframed it, looking at it by what energized her, which was the compassion of helping versus just being detail or being persuasive, because being persuasive actually drained her. So we can reframe that into our energies and what energizes us. Sometimes it's just a matter of learning more about it. If self-improvement energizes you, maybe you can learn more about that draining activity and how to deal with it. But sometimes in the workplace, we just have to own it. So there are actual activities, worksheets that you can look at to help you to move through these draining activities. The other derailing activity is overdrive. And what happens is we have these strengths that sometimes are underused. We want them to be in that peak performance, but we overuse them. They go into what we call overdrive. Just as in Wonder Woman and Superman, they have their strengths. And in these strengths, you want to use them in the right balance. The strength that Superman uses to stop a train isn't the same strength that he uses to hold a baby or to pat a dog. We have to control these strengths and keep them in that range where we're in our peak performance. It's using the right amount in the right situation with the right combination. There was one person I was working with, and compassion and empathy were her energizers. When they went into overdrive, she started becoming a person that was listening to everyone's problems all the time, wasn't really taking care of her needs. She wasn't sleeping well. And it wasn't that anything was wrong with her. It was just the fact that she had taken this wonderful strength and just used it in overdrive. It was just using it overused. We can look at every one of the strengths and see what happens in that overdrive situation. And then we also can find out what you can do to kind of dial it back in. It's like a car. A car is great going the speed limit, but when it goes out of control, it starts to affect other people and have an effect on you too if you're speeding. So there are different activities that you can do to dial that back in so you're in that right pocket. You might want to even just look at what causes your strength to go into overdrive. What could you do more or less of to prevent overdrive? And sometimes it's using other strengths to prevent overdrive. One person I was working with did not like his commute. It was draining for him for several different reasons. And he was drained every time he was driving to work. When we looked at his strength, one of his strengths was self-improvement. So it was just a matter of him putting in something to listen to or finding a podcast that he would be learning in that drive. So it's just simply replacing that drainer with something that energized him. So then he looked forward to his commute because he was using his strength of self-improvement. So we can look at replacing and kind of reframing those things that are draining our energy. People who use their strengths every day are 6 times more likely to be engaged on the job, and they're 3 times more likely to be happier with their lives in general. Once you realize these strengths, it really does help you to be at your best more often. Creativity is one of my energizers, one of my top energizers. And I'll know when I'm working on something. In fact, when I was working on some of these slides, I could tend to get a little bit drained. And I found something that was creative that I could look at to look at it from a creative viewpoint instead of just the details. And it totally changed the energy that I had for the day. So I'm hoping that you can realize some of your energizers just as we went through them, maybe how you can use them to reframe those drainers. And strengths matter because they help you get into that state of flow. You can maximize your energy by tracking and keeping that journal so you can see when you are at your best and maybe when you're drained. And imagine when a whole team is in flow. I love to do team trainings, and we actually look at charts. We put all the different charts, the emotional, relational, execution, and thinking on the wall, and people write in their strengths, where they are. And it's amazing to see how some teams are so well balanced, how some teams might need to bring somebody else in that has some energies that they're not having in that team. I've worked with sports teams, and it is really exciting when someone can see how the strengths blend together to make the whole team work. And not because they're alike, but I think more the fact that we recognize how different people are, but how we work together. So if you're interested in taking an assessment, coaching around your strengths, if you would like a presentation or workshop on strengths, I'm at coach.me, Patrice Matteson, and you can contact me on my website, strengthfocus.us. And I'll see if there's some other questions that are happening here. Someone said persuasiveness is a strength for me, but very draining. So what can happen there is the persuasiveness, if that energizes you, what might be draining is when it goes into overdrive. So we'd probably want to look at some things that might trigger you going in to that overdrive and then just kind of bringing that back in so it energizes you. That might be why that is draining you, is because you're using it overused. You're overusing it. How do you know you're not lying to yourself about your strengths and your drainers? That's a really good question. When this kind of is what I call a self-sort, so you're just kind of picking them out yourself. When I have people do a self-sort, they're compared to the actual scientific assessment, they're usually very close because we do have a good sense of what energizes us. And if you actually look at when you're energized and when you're drained, you'll start seeing these, and I think that will confirm too some of the activities that you're doing. So that'll help to confirm that also. Any other questions, just direct questions that you would like me to answer? Someone said, do you have a mailing list? If you want to go to strengthfocus.us and comment there, send me a note. I would love to put you on. Yes, I do have a mailing list and I can add you in there. So that would be great. Looking if there is another one. How to balance private and business life. How to balance business and private life and time. Not sure I totally, I think as far as those energies do show up in your personal life as well as in your business. I think again, it's just when you're at your best and you're using your energies and you're in that flow, it affects both your private life. I've worked with strengths actually with young moms and looking at theirs, parenting. So again, like I've worked with sports teams and just individuals working at home, home-based individuals. So I think there is a correlation definitely between life, your personal life and your business once you're in your energies. Thank you for your wonderful comments. And someone asked too about the UK assessment. If you could send me a note, you can look at the assessment too. It's strengthscope.com. I should have put that up there, but strengthscope.com is the website for the UK. You can look at the assessment there. I'm certified to give that to you. You'll take about a 20-minute online assessment. It goes and is analyzed. You'll get a 12-page report. And then I spend an hour with you debriefing that specifically for you, looking at your 7 strengths, looking at drainers. But I really love to focus on just how to use those strengths. We can look at what they look like with Overdrive, but how to bring those back in. So I take about an hour to look at those. I am thinking I can get back here to the regular, I don't know if I can get back to the screen. So to do that, well, we'll just look at this kind of centered in here for just a minute. And any other questions? Thank you all for being with me. I hope that I've helped you just have a little peek into how to have your best, how to have energy at your work and in your life. And thank you so much. Any other final questions or comments? I think we have one more minute here. Thank you all. And I look forward to working with you and helping you energize your work in your life. Thanks.